Chapter 12, Section 1 in the 7th grade book is entitled Solving Two-Step Equations. So we've moved on from basic one-step equations, one variable, one number, into solving two-step equations now, where we're going to have two numbers on that left side to deal with. Let's go ahead and look at this first question and apply all those rules that we already know first before we try and add on what we don't already know, because a lot of what you're going to see here is going to be the same as solving one-step equation. So we've got 9c plus 3 equals 39. Remember, our rules said keep a variable on the left. Well, as you can see looking at this particular question, the variable c is on the left side. And furthermore, my rules said numbers on the right. And we do have a number 39 on the right side. So we see that the two things that we're going to have to move are going to be the 9 and the 3. The question that's created in Chapter 12, Section 1 is which one do I move first and which one do I move second. How I move them isn't going to change. We're still going to do opposite side do the opposite. So that rule that you've come to know and love with one-step equations, that's going to follow through just like all these other rules. We can also still flip the sides if we need to, but obviously this question is already set up perfectly and we're not going to do that. So how do we know which one do we move first? Well, the trick here is whichever one is directly connected to the variable, and when I say directly connected, it's going to be attached right to it like it shows up in this one, which would be with multiplication, or it'll be right with it with division. Whichever one that is going to go last, which means the other thing that's in the question is going to have to get moved out of the way first. So since 9 is directly connected to the variable c in this question, that's going to be the last thing I'm going to touch, which means the 3 is going to be the first thing I'm going to touch. You're kind of doing order of operations backwards. So the addition and subtraction is actually going to come first here, and then the multiplications and the divisions. So looking at this particular question, the first thing I'm going to have to look at moving out of the way is the 3 here. Well, notice talking about the 3, it's got an addition sign in front of it. So when I want to move it to the opposite side, I'm going to do the opposite, which is to subtract. So I'm subtracting 3 from both sides. Okay, so this plus 3 minus 3 cancels each other out and just leaves me 9c, which is kind of what I want. Remember, on that left side, we would generally just want the variable. The fact that c is there is a good thing. The 9, not so good. But here I've got 39 minus 3, which is 36. Okay, but now you can see this looks a lot more like what we spent a lot of time doing, because at this point we've gone from a two-step equation back to a one-step equation, and we can handle that. This is a multiplication equation, so we're going to have to solve this guy by dividing at this point. And of course 9 is the one we got to move because that's the other number. It should be on the right side. So how am I going to move it? Well, I'm going to divide 9 out of both sides here now. And when I take 36 and divide by 9, the result is going to be 4. 9 times 4 is 36, plus 3 is 39. Since the other side says 39, the equation checks. Remember, how do we check it? The left side has to be the same thing as the right side. Okay, let's try this again. In 6 plus y over 5 equals 21. So, taking a look at our rules for solving equations, we know we want to keep our variables on the left. So the variable y being on the left side is a good thing. It's not exactly first, but that's okay. Then the number 21 being on the right side, that's a good thing. So we see two things to move, 6 and 5. So the question is, which one goes first? Well, remember, the thing that's directly connected to the variable with multiplication or division is going to go last. As you can see, we're dividing y by 5, so he's directly connected to the variable, which means he's going last, which means the 6 has to go first. So I'm going to get rid of 6. When I want to move something to the opposite side, I'm going to do the opposite, and that means I'm subtracting 6 from both sides. As you can see here, the 6 minus 6 is going to 0. That's it going away like it's supposed to. Here's y over 5 and 15. So now it looks like a one-step equation like we're used to. Y over 5 equals 15. Division problem, so I'm going to do the opposite to solve it, which is to multiply. Multiply both sides by 5. And you can see they're using those giant parentheses to show multiplication here. And when I do that, the divide by 5, multiply by 5 cancels each other out. And 5 times 15 changes into 75. So y must equal 75. 75 divided by 5 is 15, plus 6 is 21. This side says 21, this side says 21. The whole thing checks. Number 3 is a word problem, but again, it's in the section about two-step equations, so chances are this has to do with a two-step equation. It says Jamie rented a canoe while she was on vacation. She paid a flat rental fee of $85 plus $7.50 for each day she had it rented for. And her total cost was $130, and we're supposed to figure out for how many days did she rent the canoe. And you can see there that they've got an equation that represents this problem, 7.5D, the $7.50 for each day. We don't know how many days, that's why they're saying D, plus the 85, the flat rental fee, has to equal $130. Okay, so if we're talking about solving this, we're saying keep the variable D on the left, which is a good thing, and keeping the number 130 on the right, which is also a good thing. So the two troublemakers here are 7.5 and 85. We have to figure out in what order are we going to move those things. So when we're trying to figure that out, we remember that, again, the thing connected to the variable goes last. Well, 7.5 is directly connected to D. So he's going to move last, which means that the 85, of course, has to go first. Opposite side do the opposite. So since 85's got a big old addition sign in front of it, I'm going to subtract 85 from all the sides. So those cancel each other out, and 130 minus 85 is going to go to 45, and it leaves me this 7.5D over here on the left. So 7.5D equals 45. Multiplication problem, but again, remember, I just want to find what variable D equals, so that's all I want to have on the left side there. So that means 7.5 has also got to move, as we established a minute ago when we were back up there in the top line. I'm going to move it out by dividing, because again, I'm doing the opposite. Right now, this is multiplication. So I'm dividing both sides by 7.5 here. And 45 divided by 7.5, that's going to go ahead and give me my final answer. 45 divided by 7.5 is equal to 6, which means Jamie must have rented the canoe for 6 days, because remember, that's what the variable D represents, how many days she rented the canoe for. So let's go ahead and take a look at the check it out examples here that wrap up the presentation. Negative 6m minus 8 equals negative 50. So again, variable on the left, m on the left is a very desirable thing, and numbers on the right, negative 50 on the right, that's a good thing. So the negative 6 and the 8, those are the two things that are going to have to move here. So the question is, which one goes first? Well, remember, the thing that's directly connected to the variable goes last. Negative 6 is directly connected to the variable m by multiplication. So he's going to go last, which means the 8 has to go first. So I'm going to look at eliminating 8 there, and I'm going to do that by adding 8 to both sides. So I do that, and I got negative 6m equals negative 42. All right, so there's our one-step equation now. We've gone from 2 steps to 1 step. So this is, again, like we spent a couple weeks on studying there. How are we going to solve that? Well, this is a multiplication problem, so we're going to solve it by dividing. So I'm going to divide now both sides by negative 6. And when I take negative 42 and divide it by negative 6, that's going to help me figure out what m is. M, in this case, is going to equal 7. Negative divided by negative is a positive. 42 divided by 6 equates to 7. Here's 8 plus y over 2 equals 48. So, taking a look at this particular question, again, we're going to use those same rules. Keep the variable on the left. So the variable y being on the left side is a good thing, and numbers on the right. And remember, every time I'm talking about sides, everything is in relation to the equal sign. So 48 being on the right side of the equal sign is a good thing. So 8's going to have to move, 2's going to have to move. Those are both numbers. They need to somehow travel over to that right side. Remember, the thing that's connected to the variable goes last. 2 is connected to the variable by division. Remember, the things that are directly connected to the variable are always going to be directly connected with multiplication or division. So that means 2 last, that means 8 is going to have to go first. So I'm going to look at moving 8. I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides, because remember, when I want to move something to the opposite side, I do the opposite. These are going to cancel out, which is what you've seen happen in every single problem, and it's going to leave me y over 2 equals 40. Now this is your one-step equation, so we'll look at solving that. We're going to have to eliminate the 2 because that's the other number, and it's on the wrong side being the left side. Remember, numbers are supposed to go over to the right. Opposite side, do the opposite, so now I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 to get there. And when When I do that, y is going to equal 80. 80 divided by 2 is 40, plus 8 is 48. Since the other side says 48, the whole thing checks. Finally, we'll conclude with the story problem. It says Jack's father rented a car while they were on vacation. He paid a rental fee of $20 per day plus 20 cents a mile. He paid $25 for the mileage, and his total bill for renting the car was $165. For how many days did he rent the car? So first off, you want to notice that they've given us some extra components here. All right, they've told us that he's paying 20 cents a mile, which looks like it would be important to the equation. But the thing is, then they go on to tell us right here that he's actually just paying a flat $25, or he has paid $25 for the mileage at 20 cents a mile. We could figure that out, but it's not important. All right, the part that's going to change here is this part, because it's $20 per day, but we don't know how many days he's rented that for. So if it's 1 day, it's 20 times 1. If it's 2 days, it's 20 times 2. If it's 3 days, it's 20 times 3. That's the part that's going to change. So 20 times the number of days, whatever we figure that out to be, plus the $25 for mileage is going to equal his total bill, which is $165. Solve the equation. Well, as you can see, even though we had to set it up, it doesn't really look any different than any other equation we've solved here. All the steps that we've used are going to get used again right here. So, as far as looking through this equation here, we know that the first thing we're going to have to move is the 25. Why? He's a number. He's on the left side. That's bad. He's also not connected to the variable. Remember, the thing with the variable goes last. So we're going to look at moving the 25 out of the way. So I'm going to subtract 25 from both sides. And that's going to give me 20d equals, in this case, 165 minus 25. That's going to give me 140. These two canceled each other out. That was the whole point. Again, just like every other question we've solved today. So now we've got 20 times d equals 140, a basic one-step equation. We're going to solve this guy by dividing now. Dividing across by 20 all the way. And when I take 140 and divide it by 20, we end up with d equals 7. So he had to have rented the car for 7 days.